welcome. This episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour, LizMcGee. Thanks for tuning in again, and I am going to deviate a little bit from my series on beasts, which has unlocking the keys, and I'm just going to do a little digression on something that's heavy on my heart to show how keys can be used to get back to a really biblical foundation, Hebraic, back in our root system, and why it's important to keep going down this road. But, you know, there's a lot going on today in the world, obviously. Prophetic teachers, end time bro, having a field day over a lot of these different events going on. And again, what I want to say is it behooves us to have this biblical understanding that there is tons of encryption in the word. And unless you are down to the sod level of understanding of this encryption, you are not leading people down the road to truth. So let me go into, hey, I just want to say subscribe. I have a lot of meat on this channel. That's what I'm about. I just try to teach, the meat, adult level understandings, people who are really steeped in Torah, getting away from the milk, getting into the meat. All right, Yahweh is raising up an army of people today who can really rightly divide the word of truth in ways it hasn't been done for a couple thousand years. So welcome and subscribe, like, hit, they say hit the little bell to get notifications, all that kind of stuff, whatever. So I want to start with Matthew 16:18. And the big question today is, who is the rock? What is the rock referring to? A person, Peter? A confession? I mean, this is a really important discussion to nail down because it has huge implications for the way you view, quote unquote, the end time scenario. So let me just, and again, my presupposition is our texts are written in Hebrew. Hebrew is the language of creation unless you understand, and I'm not saying you have to know how to read Hebrew per se, but you must understand fundamentally how the language is structured, how it's used, and how our sages, encrypt information, how you have to be able to get down to that level and understand it. And that Yeshua, our master teacher, who did restore, this is called the keys to the kingdom, to his Talmudim, to his disciples, brought them right back up to speed again. So they were not shut out of the knowledge of the kingdom of heaven, and we can get back there. So I'm going into these pivotal verses. Matthew 16:18 and John 6:20 are the two basic verses. But I want to read you just a little, why I'm starting with this, upon this rock. This is the question. Yav-He, Vav-He, which again, Hebrew letters, important. It's not an arbitrary bunch of letters put together that we tend to call Yahweh, okay? Will build his church. And if you know anything about even the Greek, which is this is an English verse from a Greek translation of a New Testament verse in Greek. I really believe by the time it's all wrapped up, we are going to find some Hebrew, some original New Testament text written in Hebrew. I just believe that has to happen to really clear up once and for all a lot of this. But upon this rock, Yahweh says he will build his church. Church is the word ecclesia. Has nothing to do. This is the first line of defense. Get totally out of the building with the four walls around it, the corner synagogue, has nothing to do with it. The church, ecclesia, it's a called out group of people. He's out. Wisdom is out there in the marketplace, it says, just calling anybody, just constantly streaming forth truth in myriad of ways, and to see who will bite, who will take the hook, who will search her out. All right? Those who take the bite, take the fish, hook it. Those are the ecclesia. And then Yahweh draws us in more and more and more into light, into truth, into this whole thing. But if you're not part of this, if you haven't, so to speak, taken the bait, wisdom and understanding out there and made it the principal thing in your life to get to the bottom, then, it's not going to go so well. All right. So anyways, Matthew 16:18, John 6:20, New Testament verses that deal specifically with this kind of verse. We're going to go into it. But the first thing that must be understood is Hebraically, because Yeshua was a Jewish rabbi. He called out 12 Talmudim. He formed himself a little bit. Then he was a Jewish teacher from a Jewish 100% mindset. And not only was he Jewish, he was an Essene. I mean, to me, the evidence is overwhelming. Of course, it's my opinion, that he comes from this group that we now know from the Dead Sea Scrolls, alive and well and flourishing in the time of the first century. And this is his gestation group, so to speak. All right. Even though he was fully, to be a Torah sage, let me tell you, you have to understand, the writings. So the Pharisees, I don't want to get into all this. He was an Essene, okay? I have a YouTube on it. Many people do. But the way the Hebrews understand, the words are coded. So the word stone, you have to understand Hebraically what it's referring to. They're using a word stone, which is a word, you look outside, it's full of rocks and stones in the physical geographic sense. But that's not what he's talking about. The word is being used in a different way, and it's being referred to as letters. So that's what I'm saying. Upon this rock, which isn't talking about, you can argue they're Petros, all these bad translations and bad theologies coming forward. The word rock, there's two words in the Hebrew, and I'll show it to you. Eben and sur, all right, sur. And they mean rock or stone. But it's 100% clear. When you put the scriptures together, it is talking about this concept that the letters, the Hebrew letters, are the bedrock, the foundation of all creation. Now, this is what, again, this is a very Kabbalistic teaching, because this is what is really understood in the soul level. This is why they spend so much time going into the Hebrew, looking at the letters and the notations and all these things, and digging out, like the point, go and dig a field. Get the rocks out of there. The building blocks, the concept of, that Hebrew letters from like the building blocks, like the DNA of creation. But back to my point, if you want to still believe that Peter, a person, a human, is the rock, fine. But if you want to be, in my opinion, have rightly divided the word, the rock is referring to the letters that form the bedrock, the foundation, how they're ordered, how it works out, that makes up this whole thing. And as you understand spiritually, YHVH is the foundational name, the tetragrammaton of Elohim. All right, and everyone's trying to, whatever. So let me just read this. To just talk about Hebrew. Hebrew sentences and verbs identify action, the action of an object, while nouns identify an object of action. I don't want to get too much into there's beyond the scope of this. I can't. All right, let me just try to do this. The verb. Language is made up. You put things into nouns and verbs, actions or objects. I mean, that's kind of foundational. Okay, but the Hebrew way is done very specifically in that they work in tandem with each other. So while you have a word melech, which is in Hebrew, and it means the reign of the king, melech means king, and while the noun melech would be referring to the concept of the king who reigns. So you flip it up, but they have very important nuances of understanding. In Hebrew, I'm telling you, it's all about the nuance, all right? A good example of action in what appears to be a static passage is the command in Exodus 23 to have no other gods, no other Elohims before me. Yahweh says that, look, have no other Elohims before me, which is really the Hebrew thought what it's saying when you take into this, when you looked in the Hebrew and see the connections between the nouns and the verbs and how the noun and the verb relate to each other. What the concept it's saying is not to bring another one of power in front of my face. See, this is the thing. The text does not deny that there are other quote unquote Elohims. I've done a lot of teachings on, there are other gods out there. There are other, craftsmen, there's a lot of words used to describe the powerful principalities. They're powerful entities out there that are very integral, have position and authority, and do things in the creation. They're lesser Elohims. And this is the whole point with the pagans, with their gods were these 70 gods of the nations, a lot of the lower level Elohims that were kind of in charge. Look at mid-level management in charge of running and keep, the cosmos, okay? You are not to bring these other powers, these other principalities in front of my face. Face is sort of a word that's used Hebraically to kind of front and center. So we put Yahweh before our face, front and center. He is our object of our verb of worship. All right, very important, but these nuances are important. So when we get into this concept of, okay, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, because the reason I'm saying is because there's a whole bunch of misinformation about the Noahide laws going on out there in a lot of YouTubes, because I don't know, it's just, I don't know how people get on these tracks somehow, but the Noahide laws, a lot of Jews consider Christians to be idol worshipers. This is one of the charges against. This is why they cannot get on the page, like on top of Yeshua. Okay, so Yeshua, HaMashiach, the Mashiach, is, in one sense, YHVH, the role. It's hard to get up for us Jews and Christians to get on the same page about this because we have such wildly different concepts of how the words are used. We're telling them that upon the rock Petros, or on Peter, Yahweh or Yeshua is building his church, okay? Jew would look at, no, Yahweh would never build his church on a person. That's not how it works, okay? On the rocks, the stones, the building blocks. So there's a huge mind gulf here going on, and we have to work it to get back to, again, the Hebraic understanding, because we're going to get a point. This is my... and this is who's any Ephraimite teacher out there. You've got to stop being an quote unquote evangelical teacher. I'm telling you, the spirit is moving on, has moved on beyond that. All right. If you want to keep up with our Ruach HaKodesh, our heavenly mother, so to speak, on the download of spiritual wisdom and understanding going on, you got to get past a lot of this fundamentalist, Gentile Christian theology that has so divorced itself from its root, its original building blocks. Okay, there's a favorite verse I have, Isaiah 11:13. The reason this is important, because it's all about, I have a threefold cord, so to speak, of teachings. Today I want to talk about the stone of Israel. Who is the stone, the rock of Israel, and the Noahide laws, and are the Jews, is there a big plot, so to speak, to begin to call Gentile Christians, idolaters, and that they get the death sentence? You know what I mean? I mean, this is so extrapolating to such an extreme, all right? This is how Satan uses us because of our ignorance. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Here's a whole big setup for two people that can destroy each other, brother against brother. It's a continual story that's been going on for 2,000 years. So it's important to understand this, and then to go into the end times. And I have I'm sort of developing in a really word, I guess you would say, I mean, to Ephraimite teachers, to these Christian end timers who think they just understand Judah's role in eschatology and are just telling her what to do and telling her what she's doing wrong. If you don't understand the two houses, all right, we're going to get down to this. And Judah's role, Ephraimite, stop telling Judah what her role is in prophetic end time, and that you have any say in the matter, and you constantly are really, in my opinion, at this point, more part of the problem than part of the solution. Oh, my soapbox. Anyways, let me just read. Isaiah 11:13 says, because we're going into a reunification. If you're not working for the reunification of the whole house of Israel, you're not working with the Ruach HaKodesh in this time and place, okay? Because that's where we are, that's where we're going, that's what's in the atmosphere spiritually right now. Isaiah 11:13, then The jealousy of Ephraim will depart, and those who harass Judah will be cut off. Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah, and Judah will not harass Ephraim. See, this is what's going on between the two of us, and so much, we just, harass each other. Yes, I get jealous of Judah sometimes because I'm like, oh my gosh, these people grow up knowing Hebrew. They grow up understanding these deep, the deep ways in which the cosmos works, that Yahweh has wired it. They've been very secretive about it, all this kind of stuff, but for good reason, for whatever. I understand their point, but the point is, and, Judah keeps harassing us about our Mashiach ben Joseph. Look, he's not the Jews' Messiah right now, per se, okay? Messiah ben David's coming on the scene, okay? But, in order to get to the bottom of a lot of this stuff, you have to get back to, in my opinion, but these fundamental Hebraic understandings. Now, sorry about all that. Here we are in Matthew 16. Let's just start here. First of all, the Pharisees and the Sadducees came up testing Yeshua and asked them show them a sign. Now, again, Pharisees and Sadducees, where are the scenes in this? Well, Yeshua comes from a background, it really wasn't the Essenes. If you really study this out, the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel, and where camps everybody was in, really wasn't very often the Essenes that Yeshua was coming up against. It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees, which are specific groups of peoples which you behooves you to get a deeper understanding on. And he replied to them, when it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. Here, let me just go back here. Let's just read this whole thing in New American Standard. Okay, when it is evening, it will be fair weather for the sky. Before I get into, let me read it, and then I'll go to make my point. But he replied to them, when it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning there will be a storm today, for the sky is red and threatening. Now, you know how to discern the appearance of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. Okay? And he goes on, evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign. None will be giving you except the sign of Jonah. Now, there's tons. Now, this is what I try to tell people. The level of encryption in this is crazy, but I will tell you, so about 90% of the people out there don't understand, when Yeshua is and they're talking about, he picks this concept that fair weather, all right, let me just start. So he says, when it is evening, okay, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red, and in the morning there will be a storm today, for the sky is red and threatening. They're very specific because day and night have specific theologies around them, the left side and the right side. In the morning, if you see a storm and the sky is red and threatening, what it say is Gevera. In other words, this is actually a reference to Sephirithic archetypes that the people on a very fundamental understood. So what a red sky refers to the left side, which is the side of judgment, which is the side where, it talks about the sides of the north, which is a Sephirithic area called Gevera, which is where the chastening angels, and this is where, it gets in all the tempests, the winds, the storms emanate from. And all these words are used a lot parabolically in terms of storms of life, storms of judgment. So they're having a totally, in a lot of ways, Kabbalistic discussion about, you understand certain archetypes, right? You understand the left side and the right side being hesed and blessing and fair, it'll be fair weather. The left side meaning storm and judgment, it's going to get rocky. You get that level to a certain extent. You can see it on the physical level. And then he goes on to say, but you don't get it on the spiritual level. Like, how did you get so dumb? All right. In verse 5, he goes on to say, the disciples came to the other side of the sea. They'd forgotten to bring any bread. And Jesus said, food. And Yeshua says to them, watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You really got to know who these people groups represent. And you got to understand when we say this, when you talk about Pharisees, you cannot paint them with one broad brush. There are very distinct schools of Pharisees. the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel. And you got to understand, because it's very important with Paul, like Paul, coming from the school of Hillel or studying under Gamaliel. So you got to understand who these people are, what they represented, but that's not beyond this video. They began to discuss among themselves, saying, he said that because we didn't bring any bread, any food. But Yeshua, aware of this, said, oh my gosh, you men of little faith, why do you discuss among yourselves that you have no bread? Look at don't you understand yet? You know, it's not about the food. You know, I made a miracle of 5 loaves and 5,000, and how much you picked up, and the 7 loaves and the 4,000, and how many large baskets you picked up. How is you do not even understand that I'm not speaking concerning physical bread? Literal level understanding, okay? I can feed you, he said. Look at our mission, don't worry about it, okay? I got that covered. He goes, but beware. He says, how is it that you do not understand that I do not speak to you concerning literal, and I'm just inserting this, the literal level understanding of bread. I'm telling you, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees, that they understand that they did not. And then they understood that he did not say to be beware of the bread, literally, but of the teaching. And they had the aha moment. Oh yeah, he's doing a deeper, sowed level understanding here. He's equating to the leaven of the bread. You know, leaven makes something rise. It spreads out through the whole thing. The lies, the teachings, the distortions of the Pharisees and Sadducees is what he's trying to tell them to focus on. This is so important in Hebraic. This is where we need to grow up. This is the part of growing up and getting into the meat of the word. You got to forget the literal. I mean, not that you forget it, but when you're trying to understand the real meat, spiritual understanding, where the warfare is going on, what's really being said, you got to get into this sowed level. There's always remezes. See, the hints. The bread is referring, you know, the leaven of the Pharisee, they know it's hinting to something deeper. Well, you got to take the hint, you know, get the hint and get to the deeper meaning. All right, so that's setting my foundation for Yahweh, who's the rock. Okay, so let's go on here, and he says, now when Yeshua came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he was asking his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? That in itself could take a whole teaching, that phrase, son of man, but in the Greek, it is B'nai, it is son and Adamic. So it is a son of an Adamite. It's very important. And look at these, because this is important, you know. We're talking about an Adamite, all right? And they said, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And then he says, who do you say that I am? Now let me go into this, because see, this is where there's so much hidden in plain sight. This verse, if I have to say, here's again, Yeshua is asking his disciples, who are people saying I am? Because obviously his disciples are out there, there's a lot of conversation going on about this guy Yeshua, who's doing these incredible miracles, raising the dead and making the blind see, and multiplying literally bread and loaves into, feeding thousands of people. Okay, there's a lot of buzz going on. And he's asking them, well, who are people saying I am? And some say John the Baptist. This is a very strong proof text for reincarnation. Because everybody knows, everybody knows Jeremiah died at that point. Elijah was come and gone. John the Baptist had just been beheaded. So why would the people say that? They're not that stupid to think, unless they knew, they understood, they had a basic understanding of reincarnation, of the Gilgal of souls, the cycle of souls, and understanding prophetically a lot of these people, especially the connection between John the Baptist and Elijah, were going to be, cycling back through before this thing was done, all right? So I just want to leave that, but it's there, see, in plain sight, and there's the hints are there, but you got to take the hint and you got to go with it, go deeper. Okay, so he said, Simon Peter answered, you, Yeshua, looking at him, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. So Yeshua says to Peter, who do you say I am? Okay, Peter says, well, I don't think you're Elijah. I don't think you're John the Baptist. I think you're the dude. I think you are the Christ, Son of the living Elohim. Not the Son of Man, but the Son of the living Elohim. And there's so much theology in this, but the word you understand, Christos is a word meaning the anointed one. So this is so, the concept of anointing and who got anointed and what it represented. The only ones biblically that were anointed in their official capacity were kings, prophets, and high priests. So for him to say, that's what Christos, one of the levels of understanding of Christos means, it is a level of understanding, it is a level of office, of a spiritual anointing that is on kings, priests, and prophets, which is basically, as we understand the bigger picture, YHVH, our Mashiach, is all of those things rolled into one. All right? So Yeshua says to him, well, blessed are you, Simon, you just won the prize, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. So again, Yeshua said, blessed are you, Simon, because flesh and blood, and to me that's like, okay, look, at none of the schools, you didn't learn that. Obviously, listen, there were no Christian schools to go to. There was no King James Bible. Where would he get this information? Okay? There was nobody out preaching this right now. So you couldn't have picked this up from other people, other Pharisaic schools of thought or whatever. This had to be a revelation. And this is the foundation line from my Father, the Creator. Remember, this is why even YHVH is, and this Yeshua always was referring to, since he's not the Father. There's one greater than I. But and this is why, wow, there's so much relational information packed into these things, but we can't do it all. Blessed are you, but my Father by revelation. See, and this is the foundational truth. It is a revelation. Unless you have had literally the light of life light up your consciousness with the revelation of who this anointed one is, this son of the living Elohim, all right? So he said, now, okay, Peter, and I will say to you that you are Peter. Now, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not. Okay, now come on, people. We know, and if you look in the Greek, this is what the translators do. They add in all sorts of prepositions and pointers to the nouns and the verbs to make it read theologically how they want it to. I looked this up, and if you look at it, doesn't say, that you are, it says, and I say to you, Peter, upon this rock. What? The rocks are letters. These are two Hebrews talking to each other. Two highly initiated Essene Yeshua talking to another, his highly initiated disciple. Do you think all of a sudden there's no Catholic church at this point? There's no, what they call apostolic succession in anybody's mind at this point? Jew to Jew, they're talking, and he gets it, that this, upon this rock, upon these letters that you just confessed to me, these letters, these roots that formed a word structure, that formed a theological concept, that formed a revelation in your brain. All right, this is what I'm saying. It is on this, upon this rock, upon the confession you just made, upon the revelation, upon the way you just put those letters and words together, that was done absolutely supernaturally. And it is upon that revelation that I will continue to build and call out my elect. That, you have to understand something. This is how Lady Wisdom, she's in the street, which is an allegorical way. She's out in the world. Believe me, Bina is out there signaling all over the place, calling people to truth, and this is why everybody's testimony is so different, because so many pick up the signal in so many unique ways, so to speak. That has no shortages of ways. And but the new message out there, the new configuration of words that go together to make a confession about who do you say that I am? Who is this Christ, the Son of the living God? This is the new confession out there, all right? Because in order to enter into what's going on, because see, everything's building. We're going into a new story. We're going into a new trajectory. We're going after the Gentiles. We're going into the nations, as we will understand as the story unfolds, okay? Yeshua said to Israel, to Judah, and finally, look, I'm not coming as your king right now. I'm not coming as King David. Get over it, you know. I'm doing a different piece of the plan here. If you want, get on board. Come with me. Do this. Let's do this. For 2 days, he was going to go out into the nations. I mean, this is the theology that is packed into this. So much of it we've lost. But understanding that you, and upon this rock, upon this confession, upon the way you put letters together through revelation to give me back, or speak back to me truth, that you indeed are the Christos, the anointed one, the king, the prophet, and the priest of the Son of the living Elohim. Not a son of man per se, but a son of the living Elohim. Okay, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. All right, and this is the point. This is what he did with his disciples. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. I got to do a whole teaching, in my opinion, where I'm in understanding what it means to, you know, this has to do with sitting in Moshe's seat, but this has to do with the keys of the kingdom basically enable you to unlock the secrets of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, okay? Which the Pharisees had pretty much, in a lot of ways, shut the people out of these deeper levels of understandings. That's why a lot of times when Yeshua came in, the people just didn't get it. And it is so, but let me move on from there. Okay, so let me go to my next verses here. In Matthew 7:24, okay, so in my opinion, I've established, you can, there's a lot of places you can fact check what I'm saying. Let me just go back here to Matthew. Let's do some cross-referencing. What did I want to go to? Matthew 7:24. Okay. Let's see what we got here. So, therefore, everyone who hears, let's just even go back to, let's go to chapter 7. Let's go down here, back here. Let's just get to the whole 24. Let's get into context here. Beware of false prophets. Oh, this is so important. Where a good tree cannot produce good fruit. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? That he might cast out demons, met miracles, and he will declare to you, I never knew you. That's worth a whole bunch of teachings in and of itself. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them may be compared to a wise man who builds his house on the rock. All right? The rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew and slammed against that house, and yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on the rock. All right? Now, let me tell you something here. Again, if you understand, and this is why I should bring this up. If you understand that these people all had a very working understanding of the Kabbalah, the tree of life. Now, I know this for a fact because now once you get this understanding, you see it everywhere and you can think like a Hebrew, all right? Because this is foundational to them. And when I told you about the left side, Gevera, in the beginning, you can see judgment. Judgment is always from the left side. It always is used in words like here. Floods, winds blew, slammed against the house. It did not fall, okay? This is referring to the left side, you know, and again, is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, is the left side, the angel of death, evil inclination. I mean, there's so many things packed in allegorically. These are just ways in which, to the left side, all right? But it will not be able to prevail. It will not be able to bring down a person's true confession that has been founded on the rock, all right? Ultimately, YHVH is the rock, the original rock that was cut out of the mountain. This is the thing, and that will crush all the other. So it really and truly, truth, in one sense, you could just say a true Hebraic teaching, and this is what happened, will just fell all the false doctrines just boom. This is part of what it means to bring the high things down and the low things up and make everything a level playing field of truth where everybody can just walk on it evenly and equally. Okay, this is part of what is going on right now. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house upon the sand. Okay, again, the left side, the rain, the floods, the judgments, the winds blew and slammed against it, and it fell, and great was its fall. Okay, Jesus, when Yeshua had finished these words, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one having authority and not as their scribes, because he understood the sod level. And when people, this is when he shut the mouth of so many people so many times by just opening up this sod level of understanding, and the people would be standing like, why are you against that? I mean, that's just, okay. And we're going there where the sod level is going to be opened up to such a level that and its understanding is just going to flood people's consciousness, and the naysayers are going to have no place to hide. But again, what I just want to show in this proof text is that, again, he is making it on the rock is what the wise man, which is always referred to, a wise man biblically is someone is always referring to an initiated person, someone who is getting into the deeper levels. Their consciousness is raised. They have a deep and abiding understanding and relationship with the rock of Israel. Okay, so the man who builds his house upon this rock, this confession, is known as a wise man. In his house, he will stay. Now, a couple of the analogies here is, okay, we're building. A wise man builds. Let me give you a couple of quotes here, because it's so important to understand a lot, like I said, rocks and stones representing the 22 letters originally of the Hebrew alphabet, how they're put together. And there's oh my gosh, it just drives me crazy. I mean, I get jealous of Judah. They have such a running start. Let me just read a couple of quotes here. In the whole concept, the Hebrew consists of 22 letters, right? The first 9 letters, Aleph through Tet, represent the lower part of Bina, okay? The next 9, Yod through Sadiq, stand for Zeram Pin, and the last 4, Kof through Tav, stand for Malkut, all right? See, this is all reference to the whole Kabbalistic tree of life. If you see, this is one of the things, once I began to really understand these charts, and they weren't so scary and occultic and, oh my gosh, what are these people doing? Just educate yourself. It's like anything. When I look at a chart, a chemical chart, I have no idea how to read it unless somebody taught me. This is the whole point. It's very delineated, classified. So anyways, there's a concept here in two of, so it's the 22 letters. And each letter is a number. So there's so many ways in which they communicate, and where this thing builds itself geometrically and actuality, in finally in physicality. There's the emanator, the Elohim, there is the emanator, and there is the emanated. See, this is what I said. It's so important to not put a God, how did I say that? A God in front of, not to bring another one of power in front of my face, another lower Elohim in front of my face. There are mid-level management, but we are to stick with the Yav-He, Vav-He, and everything that is contained in that theology with the word. So the emanator and the emanate, what I want to say is, the principalities, powers, those are emanated. They're not Yahweh himself, all right? There's a big distinction, okay? The emanator has 4 elements, and this is where it gets into, and I've been through fire, wind, water, and earth, which are the 4 otiot letters, Yod, He, Vav, He, which are Chokmah, Bina, Tiferet, and Malkut. This is all words, if you're not familiar with this, of explaining the Sephirithic tree of life, all right, and how it functions. There are also the Nikodot, the Tagin, the Otit, there's other, so how do I say this? See, earth, air, wind, and fire, you have to understand what these people have been trying to communicate. These are different energies, like the four rivers. Okay, it's another one. The four rivers is the same thing as saying fire, wind, dust. There are four states of energy, states of spiritual energy that are out there that are emanating. All right. Now, back to this concept of a building of the house, all right, and the confession, Yeshua says that he will build his house. And the man who builds his house, so there's two levels. Yahweh is building a house, so to speak, which is the concept of Adam came, which is the concept of the body of Christ, which Paul is alluding to. Paul understood all this stuff, okay? So there's a big house that's getting built, but also archetypally, we have a house. Okay, we're individually little tabernacles, little vessels, little houses, whatever. And if we're going to build our house correctly, we've got to build it on using the correct building blocks, the correct letter stones that combine together to make correct truth. All right. So I want to say, as a carpenter employs tools to build a home, so Yahweh utilized the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, to form heaven and earth. All right. These letters are the metaphorical. This is just an allegory word. These letters are the metaphorical wood, stone, nails, corner posts, cross beams, whatever, of our earthly and spiritual existence. Now this gets so deep. I'm telling you what. But conceptually, theologically, this is Hebraic. This is how Yeshua, the Jewish rabbi, is talking to his Talmudim. They understand this, these references. All right. Now let me just let's go to Genesis 49:24 quick. I'm going to show you another verse. All right, so let's go here to, what do I have? Genesis 49:22. That's the very famous chapter. Wait a minute. Of Jacob blessing the sons, which should be read, in my opinion. If you want to read a great chapter and get a ton of good information, read it in the Targums, okay? Ton more information. What we get in our texts is what I'm trying to say. These texts are so encrypted. And the only way I've been able to uncrypt it to a certain extent is just to read all the other texts that give the backdrop and the explanation, and you can try to piece this. Right? But what I want to show you here. All right. This is the archers attacked him. Again, let's go to 49. This is talking about Joseph. It's very important to understand Judah. Judah is the lion's whelp. Judah has a specific, the house of Judah has a very specific end time scenario they're going to have to go through. We're not going through the same one they are. I'm talking about Joseph. We are the house of Joseph, Ephraimites, okay? Here we go. So he says Joseph. This is again, and Joseph is what becomes an archetype and a code word for the house of Judah, house of Ephraim, which is also known as, well, the house of Ephraim, which is his son that he put the blessing on when he crossed his hands and he gave the bulk load of the birthright blessings to Ephraim. And that became the word, the house of Ephraim. That's how these things work. They're not, I said, the prophets are not confused. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. Its branches run over a wall. Honestly, this is so, you got to see, it's so allegorical because, I did a teaching on this one time. It's not a fruitful bough. I can't even get into it. But by a spring, by a river, the river of living waters. This is all talking about how Joseph is going to be planted very well. And let me just tell you this other thing. When they're talking about house of Judah and house of Ephraim, all these, 9% you'll see there's two categories of people. Woe to them who just don't get it. You know, the lawless ones who just go through a religious thing and live their life, but, you know, give lip service, and the true remnant, all right? The prophets are putting the promises on the true remnant, the ecclesia, those who have been called out and have answered the call. All right. So, and anyways, the archers bitterly attacked him and shot at him and harassed him, but his bow remained firm and his arms were agile from the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. So again, this is my proof that the rock that this quote unquote group of called out people in these last 2 days, this confession that Peter made, that you Yeshua, not Sarin, the Nazarene, you're the one, you're the anointed one of the Son of the living Elohim now. You are the shepherd, the stone of Israel, not Peter. Okay, see, so if you really cross-reference your even a cursory level of cross, you will understand, right? We're not talking about Peter going into a denomination called Christianity, which morphs into Edom, which the Jews have to finally eventually call Edom because it's so corrupt and it's so off the mark. I mean, okay, so one more time. Now, let me just say, but the bow remained firm and his arms were agile, and the archers, this is again, archers barely attacked. These are demonic. This is a reference, you understand, the archers. This is the concept of the, when you put on the full armor of Elohim, what they call the soldier. I know there's the Christian armor plate, but it's a Hebraic concept, the archers, that no matter how the demonic entities attack Joseph, in his archetypal concept for the remnant that will always be in every generation from this group, okay, of the house of Ephraim, they will prevail, is basically what we're saying. Okay, no matter how demonically attacked they get, there will be a remnant in every generation that will prevail, pious, righteous, we'll call them Gentiles because that's it. And the Noahide, there's a lot into this, okay? But it is because of the shepherd, the stone of Israel, who is YHVH, who is from the hands, the mighty one of Jacob. I mean, as you learn these keys, you can begin to see the cross-referencing going on from the Hebraic. Okay, forget. Let me just go here to Deuteronomy 32:4, a last one. Let's see. Deuteronomy 32:4. Let's see what that brings up. Someday I'll learn to do PowerPoint, be much easier, whatever. He is the rock. I mean, how blind can it be? Who's the rock? Who's the rock? Peter. Or YHVH, you pick, but I'm done. I'm sticking with my even literal Peshat level understanding in the scriptures. For I will proclaim the name of Adonai, of the Lord, Adonai, ascribe greatness to our Elohim. See, it's so important to get back to the Hebrew on these things because, again, these letters form when it comes to, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, our Elohim is one. Okay, but the point is you put these different letters together, you're creating different, what's happening, spiritual energies that are coming down and affecting us in different ways. In other words, Yahweh, I see he wears many hats. Sometimes he's going to come as the judge. Sometimes he's going to come as a merciful, shepherd. But and that's going to, so Adonai, Lord, is a different word than the greatness of our Elohim. Oh my gosh, there's so much packed into these letters and their combinations. All right. He. So who is the he referring to? Adonai, our Elohim. He is the rock. His work is perfect. All his ways are just. He is an Elohim of faithfulness without injustice, righteousness, and upright is he. Okay? It's the people who have acted corruptly. Okay? The spot is on them, and so there you have it right there. We just have to really, again, let me go back to keep working these words to show that the builder of the house, and you use bricks and rocks and stones to build a house, that is YHVH. He is the rock. All right, I got two last quick ones. 1 Peter 2:6. And it's important to have this foundation as I try to go and explain the Noahide laws, its relationship to the two houses of Israel. And we're going to end up with a very cutting edge quote. Let me just see. I'm trying to get 2:6. Okay. So, all right, let's go a little faster. 1 Peter 2:6. For in the scripture, what scripture? They didn't have a New Testament at this point. This is 1 Peter. It's the Old Testament. For in the Old Testament, he says, he's quoting an Old Testament verse. See, I lay in a stone in Zion. Zion is a word, in my opinion, that's used a lot of times to represent spiritually, our spirituality. Let's say our position in the heavenlies, all right? Jerusalem, many ways, is referring to the city. You know, again, we have a position. Jerusalem is the capital city, you know, the capital of the king. Remember, the king who reigns, and then the reign of the king, right? He's got, but Zion, see, I lay a stone in Zion. It is a chosen and precious cornerstone, all right? Cornerstone, all right? He is the rock, and the one who trusts in him will never be put to shame. I mean, how clear, how can they say that Peter was confused and went on and built a church based on him? No. See, I mean, this, oh, drives me crazy. Anyways, you also, like living stones, all right, this is how it's, are being built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim through Yeshua. So Yeshua the Nazarene, who was the anointed son of Elohim, all right? For scripture, stands in scripture, I lay in Zion a stone, a chosen and precious cornerstone, and the one who believes in him will never be put to shame. To you who believe, this stone is precious, but to those who do not believe, it is the stone that the builders rejected and that they rejected has become the cornerstone. YHVH, but keep it 100% in the context of a Jewish sage talking to a Jewish sage, okay? Get all the Christian theology out of your head. Okay, so my last one, let's go to Isaiah 8:4. Okay, because it's all part of the plan. Don't think Yahweh doesn't know the end from the beginning, and he's always working all these ends, all things together will work for good. Isaiah, did I get that right? Oh, 14, sorry. Let's just do that again. Okay. Did I get that yet? Oh my gosh. Someone teach me how to do a PowerPoint. Isaiah 8:14. Okay. All right. Now this is a really important verse. I'm going to end on this one. Because like I said, it's foundational to understand the two houses of Israel, that the whole house, all 12 tribes, all Israel is in different camps right now. We have, you know, Christianity basically, and the Jews, the house of Judah. But see, there's more keys in this when you begin to understand how, oh, I didn't want to digress. I was going to do that, but oh, people, broken peoples, shattered. Again, this is judgment. Gird yourselves. You're going to be shattered. There's a plan that is been concocted where Yahweh is going to come after you with the king of Assyria in judgment, basically. For the Lord, for Adonai spoke to me with his mighty power and instructed me not to walk in the ways of this people. Now, this is so foundational because in prophets, you are not to say it is conspiracy. All right. Now, here's Yahweh. He's talking to one of his great prophets. Okay. This is Isaiah. Isaiah was no slouch. He was like the king of prophets. Okay. You are not to say that what everybody else out there is calling conspiracy. It's not all a conspiracy. Don't fear it and don't dread it. It is the Yahweh Lord. All right. So this is Lord of hosts is Adonai Sabaoth, the Lord of the armies. One of the names, the emanative positions of YHVH is as Adonai Sabaoth, the Lord of all his armies, his angelic hosts. He said, you shall, and he shall be your fear, and it is him you shall dread. Look at, I'm in charge of the angels. Don't always try to figure it out. This is my word to all these end time prophets, you know, with the third temple being rebuilt, and oh, Netanyahu getting reelected, and oh my gosh, are we just poised for the Antichrist to come, and Judah's, oh my gosh, and all this. You don't, Yahweh Elohim is at the head of this thing, and he is working out an insanely intricate prophetic scenario that is going to catch Lucifer all his in a net. Don't try to figure it out, and don't be dogmatic and say that you know the conspiracy that's going on. It's going to be the Pope and the Catholic Church, even though I've tried to, they have a lot of bad theology and they have a lot. Don't try to 100% figure it out. It is so highly encoded. Most of these Ephraimite teachers don't even understand the sod level in the book of Revelation. Okay, there's no way they're going to figure it out. And so he's saying, look, don't worry about it. I'm doing something. All right, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I'm going to do it. That's what he's always saying. The strong arm of the Lord is going to do this thing. And he will be, YHVH will be a sanctuary. But, all right, so for the righteous remnant believer, don't worry about it. Quit worrying about it, okay? It's always, the message is it's going to be woe to the wicked. If you're not in that camp, don't worry. Tell the righteous it's going to be well with them, all right? Okay, then he will become a sanctuary. He will be. He is our sanctuary, all right? But to both houses of Israel. Okay, this is fundamental. Most people would just gloss this over. They wouldn't understand. Both houses of Israel, this prophet understood completely what he's saying. To the house who at this time of Isaiah, the house of Ephraim was already in exile. They had already been divorced and sent away. Okay, and judgment was coming very rapidly on the house of Judah. So we have both houses of Israel. He will be who, and let's go back to this rock, all right? He will be to both a stone to strike and a rock to stumble over, and a snare and a trap for all the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In other words, on an earthly level, because I told you Jerusalem usually represents sort of an earthly level understanding of this thing. Don't try to figure it out. Both houses. He is going, this whole thing is going to, Yeshua, YHVH is going to be a stone to stumble over, a rock that's going to strike, you're going to fall over it, and it's going to be a trap and a snare. So this is my opinion, okay? Not to say we're not supposed to keep learning into the soul level, to keep trying to figure it out and go deeper and deeper, but I see too many people, in my opinion, the enemy is setting up, again, a brother against brother. And it's going to happen to a certain extent because judgment, kind of always does come down like that. But then they will fall. Many will stumble over it. They will fall and be broken, and they will even be snared and caught. All right? So Yahweh has a plan in all this to bring judgment on the wicked and to be a sanctuary for the righteous. And it's not going to be pretty. It's actually going to be very chaotic. I say, people, I'm so glad I started years ago to pay attention, because to try to get into it today, oh my God, there's so much mis and disinformation and propaganda out there. I don't know, whatever. But with Yahweh, all things are possible. So I don't want to discourage anybody. But it says, bind up the testimony and seal the law among thy disciples. And I will wait for Yahweh, for Adonai, who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob. Now here's your key. All right. This is when the house of Jacob. Jacob was the patriarch, the archetype over all 12 tribes, which represents an all Israel. So he's hiding his face deep from all Israel. The Jews, is what Paul said, the Jews, Yeshua is a stumbling block to the Jews, but listen, you Gentiles, don't get arrogant. And I think you understand it all, because then it'll become a snare to you. And it's exactly what's happening. And that's exactly where we are. Both houses are in this place of, potentially you're going to fall and be broken. You're going to be snared and you're going to be caught in your wrong understandings. But bind up the testimony and seal the law among my disciples. That's what he's saying. Like he said to Daniel, just seal it up. It's going to come back out among my prophetic, reincarnated, Elijah 2 witnesses in the 144 at the end of the age. This is how I'm going to interpret this at this point, understanding the bigger picture of scriptures. But to bind up and seal the law, just hunker down with the true understanding of this thing. Let it play out as it's going to play out. Wait for Yahweh, who is hiding his face from both houses, all of Jacob. All right, so there's just a lot in all this. So I wanted to just get that. Again, I'm going to end up with my last verse here, which, to go back to it, Isaiah 11:13. If you love Judah, pray for Judah. Pray they have wisdom and discernment. Pray that there is a remnant, and there will be a remnant that will be saved. A huge remnant. It's going to be unbelievable finish. I just can't wait to see this thing finished up. But Isaiah 11:13, then the jealousy of Ephraim will depart, and those who harass Judah will be cut off. Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah, and Judah will not harass Ephraim. That is from Isaiah. That's where we're going. It's going to be fine. Next time I'm going to get into, I want to talk a little bit about the Noahide laws and a little bit more again about Judah's role in the end time. Just let it play out. So on that note, I'm going to just say shalom, blessings. Make today your confession, because that's my last point I want to say. Because this is why by faith is referred to as the Sephiroth of Malkuth. You cannot even enter into heaven, this whole thing, except through a confession, again, of faith. And again, who do you say, as Yeshua said, who do men say I am? All right? Do it today. Ask Yahweh to give you the revelation that Peter had as to who this Yeshua ben Joseph was, this shepherd, this stone of Israel. So I will, on that note, say shalom, blessings, and I'll be